First, I would like to request Ms. Shasta Malik uh, what she thinks about gender justice across jurisdictions. And there are a couple of questions that I'd like to ask you, but before that, I'd like you to share your insights. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me on the panel. And I feel gender is something which is very, very important for me, or for everybody sitting here, or for our party PMLN. I think gender is the most important thing, because when there is gender rights, they are they are the basic human rights, I feel. And when women get accessibility, equality, and justice, societies and countries progress. And when societies progress, countries progress. And I feel it is a very important issue, and it should be in the mainstream, which our government at the moment is. So I think as far as the government of ours is concerned, we have done a lot of work in gender mainstreaming, and we consider gender an important and integral part of the legislation which we carry on in the country.
My question to Ma'am Shasta Parvez Malik is that it has been said that the PMLN government have integrated international standards of gender mainstreaming into domestic laws. What is your take on it? Do you believe what they have done is effective so far? Thank you.
Yes, I do think that PMLN government have made a conscious effort to align Pakistan's domestic legal framework with international gender equality standards, particularly those flowing from CEDAW and the Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDG 5, gender equality. But I feel alignment and effectiveness are two, not the same thing. Integration, yes, international standards are visible in the law. If we look at the legislation passed or strengthened during the PMLN tenures, especially in Punjab and at the federal level, we do see the language and the logic of international gender mainstreaming clearly reflected. There was a shift from morality to right-based framing, recognition of state responsibility, not just private wrongdoing, emphasis on prevention, protection, and redress, not only punishment. A move towards institutional mechanism rather than ad hoc response. And as we all know sitting here, the laws on workplace harassment, violence against women, rape law reforms, and I would be proud to say that I was part of the rape reforms that were formulated. And protection orders all echo international norms around due diligence, survival, central, justice, and equality before the law. From a legislative drafting perspective, this represents real progress. Pakistan today is not legislating in isolation from the world. It is clearly borrowing from global standards. So I think we are moving in the right direction. But where the problem begins, gender mainstreaming stopped at the statute level. Where I would be more cautious is on effectiveness. International gender mainstreaming is not just about what the law says, it is about how the state functions, and here the results are missed. True gender mainstreaming requires, and that is gender responsive budgeting. It's the budget which is very important, and this is where we lack. we don't plan in our budget for gender mainstreaming. And we, as I am the convener of the SDG task force, we are trying to work, and we've started work from now to start and align our budgets with the gender mainstreaming budget also. So let's see, we are hoping. Data systems that capture gendered harm. The data is not very clear and available. Institutional incentives that reward protection and prevention. Accountability when the system fails women and girls. I mean, there's no accountability. In Pakistan, including under PMLN, this translation from law to administration has been partial and uneven. And it's not something to be proud of, but that is the fact. Many institutions still treat gender justice as a social welfare issue, not a governance obligation. A project, not a permanent state function. A woman's ministry issue, not a whole of government responsibility. And that is not the way gender mainstreaming actually what it requires. The quote, sorry, I'm having a little problem. I have my glasses, but I hope. The quotation, modern laws, traditional power structures. There is also a degree structural conditions. While laws have been modernized, proved, relations on the ground have not changed at the same pace in many settings. Information justice system override formal rights. Economic dependency silences legal remedies. Political and social pressure discourages enforcement. Women are expected to compromise for family honor or social behavior. And this, I think, Rabia, you will bear me, that it is the compromise between families, between relatives, which is the main cause of the hindrance in providing justice. No amount of international language in a statute can overcome this unless the state actively disrupts these power structures. And the disruption requires political will. I think the will is there now. Often the law is passed not just to applause when it is passed. Now women are very active. We have a very active women parliamentary caucus, and we at the SDGs level is also having an oversight and looking into it. Fair assessment of PML's record is, so any assessment would be, did PMLN integrate into an international gender norms into domestic law? This is the most important thing. Yes. More than many previous governments and often in difficult political environment, we have done this and we have taken it forward. And now the next question should be that, did the integration automatically translate into these equality? Again, I would with a heavy heart say no, because laws were not consistently backed by enforcement capacity, financing, data, and accountability. I think accountability, data, all these finances, all these are very important to have assessment to and have the ultimate results with how have the laws progressed. Was the effort meaningless? Absolutely not. As I have explained that yes, we are trying and we are trying to give in our input and with the help of international community also, with the international laws also, we are trying to look into it. But we should be honest, gender mainstreaming was treated more as a legislative achievement than as a long-term governance transformation. We have now a gender mainstreaming committee also in this assembly, which is overlooking all these issues and to see how women are represented in different statutes of the governments. What effectiveness would actually look like? If integration were truly effective, we would see budget explicitly linked to gender outcomes, district administrations, evaluation on protection, indicators, police and prosecution. This is a very weak part of our system which needs to be strengthened. Police and prosecutors penalizes for non-compliance. They should be penalized. Comparable data across provinces on violence, early marriage and access to justice. Survivors experiences protection as predictable, not discriminatory. I think if these issues are tackled and looked into, it will give a better picture. And but the present government is trying, having all those challenges and having those political pressures, we are moving forward, and I am hopeful next year when we'll be sitting here, I'll not be able to say that this is no and this is right. It will be yes all round. Thank you. Thank you.
My question to Ma'am Shaista Parvez Malik is that having worked as convener of the Parliamentary Task Force on Sustainable Development Goals, in your opinion, how well has the government implemented laws to end gender discrimination across jurisdictions in Pakistan? Thank you.
I think it is fair to say that PML governments have made a conscious, effort. And as convener of the task force on SDGs, I would say that Pakistan has built a sizable legal architecture for gender justice, but it has not operationalized it evenly or reliably across jurisdictions. In many areas, the law now points in the right direction. The left experience still often points elsewhere. The headline, stronger laws, uneven implementation, that is our problem. Over the last decade plus, Pakistan has enacted and updated key laws meant to reduce gender discrimination and gender-based violence, particularly around harassment and sexual violence. Workplace harassment, the Protection Against Harassment of Women in the Workplace Act 2010, with later amendments, provides a nationwide framework and complaint mechanism, which is now in place. We have a Women in Birdsperson office also. There's NCSW also watching over how things are progressing, and as mentioned, the task force is also, we have a special convener on Goal 5, which is overlooking, and they have an oversight and they see where the gaps are, and we try to connect the executive, the missing links with the gaps we have in the legislation. And we are trying, as Rabia mentioned, that I've been working, she guided me, she leaded me to work on mental health. And it's 2 years now, I am still working because the problem in our executive system is there are overlapping institutions. We have allied health, which looks into it. Then we have the regulatory authority that looks into it. And I'm trying to differentiate and make them understand that there are gaps and there are loopholes in the mental health legislation, not in the legislation, but in the execution part, which we are trying to sort out. So I just wanted to take this opportunity and tell you, Rabia, that the work is in progress. There's a big sign and it's now really near completion. It's now nearly on completion. So in lawmaking, there has been real movement. The core challenge is implementation, capacity, institutional coordination, and social enforcement. And these vary dramatically by province, district, and even by police stations or courtrooms. Across jurisdiction is the whole story. Devolution created progress and fragmentation. After devolution, provinces legislated more, but implementation became a patchwork. And you can see these three realities in Pakistan. A better designed models exist where institutions were built, not just laws. Punjab is an example that it made a one-window operation which became an integral protection system, Women Protection Authority. Pathway from complaint, protection, legal aid, shelter, medical support, not just punishment on paper. You know, this was made in Pakistan and it's still there in Multan. Laws exist, but the service chain is weak. And this is where we step in as conveners on different goals, that we see how can be made stronger and how we can take it forward. In several places, survivors still face delays and drop-offs. And delays are also one of the very big point. You know, when there's delay in sexual violence, you know what the consequences are. And drop-offs, medico-legal, bottlenecks, weak investigation, pressure to settle, and lack of safe referral systems. This gap is documented in service access studies and GBV response analysis, and this is again where the task force and the legislators they intervene and come forward and make and try to bring in some reforms so that they can be expedited. Some negotiations face a parallel justice problems that overrides the law, as we have the jirgas, as we have the formal courts. These are the issues and the challenges, but the present government also, and this is something which we are trying to handle.